Good morning or afternoon, wherever you might be. This is Dan with John of the Designer Show. Welcome.
Hi, everybody.
John, how you doing today?
I'm doing good.
Cool. Where are you located today? You in the Twin
I'm at
Cities?
in my daughter's house in the Twin Cities. Yep.
So you came down to measure some buildings, huh?
Yeah. Had a good
Cool.
time this morning. It's pretty nice out, so I went driving around some neighborhoods in Minneapolis. I always like looking at the older house structures and stuff like that. It's always a good time.
It's a beautiful city. There's a lot of neat architecture here in this town.
Yep.
All right. So you guys, if you're on the call, by all means, chime in. With this topic of home pro versus chief architect, I wasn't sure how many people would get on the call on the live show today. But it's a topic that is of interest to a lot of people because if you're getting into the industry, if you want to get into CAD, the home pro is a great way to get into it. And I'll talk about some of that in a little bit. But first of all, let's take just a second. I'm standing in the atrium. Well, I'm really not standing in the atrium, but I have a picture of the atrium as my backdrop from the Biltmore. It's a mansion in Asheville, North Carolina that I visited a couple years ago with my family, and great place to see. And I just wanted to show you a couple quick pictures of that. And so let me just pop that up real quick. And it'd be fun to actually do a Zoom call or something, have a little discussion about this, because it was such a neat place to visit. And okay, where am I at here? Let me get
I was
to
just
the
going to
right.
say you should have told us, Dan, that you're coming to us live from the Biltmore.
Yeah, we actually, that would be a good show, John. We should plan that. Yeah,
we
should go do a show from there. But there's the Bilt. Are you seeing my screen?
Yep.
Okay, so there's the Biltmore, and it is. I don't even remember all the stats. It's a massive mansion built by Vanderbilt back in the early part of the last century. So it's over 100 years old, and it's just phenomenal. It's just a museum now that you can. It's if you ever get a chance to go there, it's phenomenal. So it's and I posted actually a little story in my blog at Chief Experts about it. So if you just go there and search, you might find it. You're going to ask something, John?
Yeah. Do you remember how long it took to build it?
5 years. Took 1,500 people 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
Yeah.
And at the time, he was paying premium dollars to all the stonework people. Because when you go look at this thing, here's the model of it that they built before they put it together. And here's the floor plan. Look at that. They drew plans back then. Yeah, how'd you like to model that building, huh? That'd be a challenge in chief, I'll tell you that right now. But a lot of it could be done. But yeah, the whole thing is stone. Everything, there is not a lick of lumber in the structure of that building. Even the roof and everything is all metal. It's I-beams holding that up, and all the slate is wired to the metal beams. Vanderbilt did not want that building to burn down. I mean, it might burn some of the wood out of the interior, but that building, the structure would be safe because there's nothing flammable, nothing combustible. So yeah, pretty cool. Anyway, I won't dwell on that. I just thought I'd show it because I ran across that as I was looking for a backdrop to throw up today. Anyway, okay, let's get back to this. So here let me just do one other thing real quick. For those of you that are part of the ProAcademy, and I want to just mention this real quick. If you go to the website, you'll notice that all of the videos, the classes that we held over the last couple of weeks are all in the ProAcademy area now. The new templates are there ready for download. So if you haven't done them yet, I'd recommend you get in there, and I'll keep adding some more information on this too. And we're going to start working on the metric templates here starting next week. So looking forward to that. So ProAcademy, if you're on the page to get to watch this, you'll see some information below the video about how to get into that. All right, so let's just chat a little bit about home pro versus chief architect. And you guys, if you have some questions, feel free to ask. So, okay, I'm just seeing if anybody commented. Oh, hey, Alex and Edit, how you guys doing? A new 1030 template. Yeah, I made that change, that one change in the template about auto framing. I turned that off and put the new template up there. So there's really nothing different, just that one setting. Okay, let me get down here, and let's start talking a little bit about the difference between ProAcademy and Chief Architect. And the reason I want to bring this up, if any of you are, well, let me explain what that is, first of all, if you're not familiar with it. So when you are working with Chief Architect, hang on here a second, got to get to the right screen. Chief has basically, well, they have a bunch of products they sell. They have the Pro version. I mean, most of us here are using the Premier, Chief Architect Premier. That's the full-blown version of the software. They do have a version called Interiors, and I'll just talk later. I'll tell you just a few of the things that are different there. And then they have the consumer products that they call them, and the Home Pro, and then they have what's called Architectural and the Suite. And when you look at what CAD software does out in the marketplace, there's not a better value that, in my opinion, for your money for any of the Chief Architect products. For what this software can do, even in the Premier version for, what is it, $3,000 now? We can look at the pricing if you want. It's far less expensive than just about anything else out there that can even touch it. So in the architectural industry. But the consumer version too, I think it's the #1 selling consumer CAD software in the world, as it should be. It's really a great product. And what we pay for, what I do is I work a lot with clients that are using the Home Pro version. So the Home Pro and Chief Architect are fully compatible. And the architectural, the $200 version, and Chief are somewhat compatible. That means that, in the Home version, people can add walls and text and change things in the plan. And then when I get it, I can work on it and give it back to them. But there are a lot of limitations, which I'll talk about here in just a little bit, of what you have to really be careful on if you're working on it. So let me just run through the things, and then I'll talk about who I think is a good fit for the consumer, the Home Pro. I'm only going to talk about the Home Pro because if you're doing any kind of a serious project, this is one to go with. If you're just sketching out a kitchen or something at your house and you want to just play with different ideas, either of these will work just fine. So
I assume it takes a less powerful computer to run the professional Home Pro too, doesn't it? Or not?
Well, it doesn't have ray tracing, which I don't use anyway, but it's got most of all the other things in it. So if you're going to be, you could just draw basic plans and do the 3D and all that stuff in any of Chief versions on a basic computer. But when you start getting into bigger plans with more information in it, you're going to want to have a more powerful computer, no question about it. So that's something to keep in mind. All right. Alex wants to add as a side question, is this the pop-up you're asking? No, Alex, this has nothing to do with ProAcademy. This is just a free thing that John and I do. It's called our designer show. We just do this every week. I'll say kind of for the fun of it.
What is this, number 20 something?
26. It's our 26th week in a row that we've done this. So it's just fun to get out there and share it. And we'll start having guests on. The pop-ups in ProAcademy, I'll post one this afternoon for a little thing tomorrow. There'll be some, they'll be coming, and that's only for members of the ProAcademy. All right, so let's talk about what some of the differences are in these programs. So let's go open up Chief Architect. So there's Chief Architect, Premier version, and let me get to the plan. So you see, I got a lot of icons on the screen. When I click on something, we get a lot of icons down at the bottom. When I click on an icon here, we get the icons over on the side. So this has about, last time I looked, about 1,100 icons in it, the Premier. I don't know how many icons the consumer version has. I haven't looked at it. When I open the Home Designer, and I've opened the same plan that in the Home Designer Pro, and it's just a trial version. I'm not going to go out and buy the Home Designer Pro because I don't need it because I have Premier. So I just download the trial. And you can do this too. You can download the trial anytime you want and play with it if you want. And actually, if you are working with a client, it's not a bad client viewer either. So they could, if you want them to be able to open your plan and look at things, have them download the trial version of this or Chief Architect. And then they can do, go around and look at it too in your plan. Of course, make sure you're trusting your customer and that you can, they're not going to take your plan and go somewhere else with it. in the trial versions, they wouldn't be able to save anything anyway. So, but they could look at it and move around in it. That would be about it. So in this, let me point out, I got about a dozen things here I want to point out. So the first one I'll point out is on the toolbar here, we don't have, first I'll put three things together. We don't have layers, default sets, or plan views. Well, what are those? All right. So in the Home Pro, you have a little icon here, which is layers. Okay. Everything in your plan has to be on a layer. If you want to look at it, turn it on and off, change the colors, do things like that, it has to be on a layer. And that's where you control all of that information. So I can turn things on and off here. I can change the line weight, the line style, line color. But you notice that on this, there's a bunch of stuff missing up here. And there's a bunch of stuff missing right here. You don't have the ability to create a new layer. You don't have the ability to create layer sets, which allows you to create groups of items for different views in your plan. So you're really stuck with one plan, okay? So if I wanted to take this plan in Home Pro and create an electrical plan, I got to do one of two things. I've got to go, I've got to decide, am I going to just put everything in one plan? Which you could do. I mean, I could go in here and I could go to my electrical layer and turn all the electrical on. And part of the reason I'm doing this today, by the way, John, is I get asked a lot, what are the differences between Home Pro and the Pro versions? Yeah. So I'm hoping that anybody out there in the industry looking at the softwares might see this and they'll be able to make a informed decision about the software. So, but here it is. I have my electrical on, and so now I have everything on in my plan. Okay, so now it would all be in one plan. It starts to get kind of messy. Where in Chief Architect, we have what are called layer sets. We have what are called their default sets. So as I'm adding text and dimensions and things like that into my plan for the different kinds of views I want to create, that's all set up and ready to go. And I also have what are called plan views. All right, these don't exist in the Home Pro version. So when I want to work on my electrical plan, I come over here and I click this, and it changes everything to work so I could just work on my electrical. So now everything that I add to this plan will be ready for this plan to go. Again, in the Home Pro version, I would either have to have it all in one plan, or at this point, I'll have to make a copy of the plan. And in that copy, then I would have to go in here and turn off the things that I don't want to see and turn on the things that I do. So then I've got two plans going for the same project. And if I make changes to it, now I've got to go change two plans. It can work, but that becomes a real pain in the butt. So that's the first thing, is layer sets. We don't have the ability to have layer sets. Now, if you're a chief user, a pro, and you work with a consumer or someone that has the home version, keep in mind that first thing you have to do in Chief is go to the plan setup icon and click on it right here. And then you have to be sure to turn this on so that your plan can be opened in the consumer versions. If you don't do this, they won't be able to open your plan. So you have to turn that on. Okay. So, I get clients call me, they want some help on their plan. So I'll do that. Now, the second thing you have to be really, really careful of, if a consumer is working on a plan and they give it to you, if you add a new layer, you go here, you hit copy or new layer, or you have layer sets, they won't get any of that. So if we look here, you notice I have all of these CAD layers, okay? I have all of these layers for dimensions. I have all these layers for framing, for notes and text. Okay, all these custom layers that I've set up in Chief Architect. If I go to the consumer version, I'll have none of that. So when I go to the layers here, I don't have any of the layers. I have one layer for CAD. I have one layer for text, one layer for dimensions. And I cannot add any layers, and it's not reading any of the layers I added to my plan back in Chief Architect. So whenever I work with a client, I have to be careful if they want their plan back for them to be able to work on it. that I can't add new layers. I have to just work what's ever on the list.
You were saying, if I heard you right before the show, that if you do put a wall on a different layer, you can't manipulate it in Home Pro.
I can manipulate the wall, but I can't.
Okay.
I can't, like these walls right here in Chief.
Mhm.
I put those on a layer called Walls Normal New
Okay.
because these are new walls. So let's say I go into my layers here and I shut off all my wall layers. Okay, I'll just shut them. Can I even group select these? Let's see. Yep, I can still do that, and I can turn them off. So it turned the layers off, but the walls are still there. I can't shut them off even.
And you can still move them around.
Yeah, I can still grab them and move them. Yeah. There might be some things you might put, maybe you put a 3D item somewhere and you put it on a layer. You might not be able to grab it and move it.
I was just thinking if they couldn't move that around, it'd be pretty slick, because then you could, any structural walls, you could put them on a different layer and they wouldn't be able to move those around.
Well, if you lock that layer before you sent them the plan. So if I would lock that layer for my walls here, that I called walls new, if I locked them first, now they wouldn't be able to move them.
Okay.
They wouldn't be able to they wouldn't be able to unlock them. No.
Right.
They wouldn't even be able to select them.
Right.
So
so that would be a good option. So if you had structural stuff, you could lock that layer, and then they wouldn't be able to move the wall around, or anything else you didn't want to have moved around.
Yep, exactly. So again, so if you've attended my templates class, you know that I'm big into this template that I've created, and when we're working on a plan and we need to have these different kind of plan views. So let me just show you real quick. So on the layout page in Chief Architect, we can have unlimited page sizes, and we can have unlimited number of pages, up to 1,000, I think. So unlimited up to 1,000. So when I go through this, you'll see I can just scroll through the different kinds of plans I want to have in here. Here's my floor plan. Here's my framing plan. Okay, here's more framing detail. Here's my electrical plan, or my kitchen plan. I've got an electrical plan. Okay, so I've got all of these all set up. Here's the as-built of the existing house. So it's all set up. It's all in one plan, ready to go. In the Home Pro version, you're limited to one page. Okay, when you're in the layout. So what I did is I opened that same layout in Home Pro. This is all I'm going to get. I won't be able to get to anything else other than this. Okay, and I can't even select the views. They're locked in place on this page. So there is no page number here. You can do, it looks like up to 24 by 36 page size, but this is it. So when I want to create page 2, I've got to close this and I've got to open up a new layout and put page 2 together. Then I got to close that, open a new layout, put page 3 together. And I might I'll have mixed plans, or when I put the view on my layout page, I'll have to go into that view and turn layers on and off. So in other words, if I were to go here, let me just go here and close this and open a new layout page. And it would go back here. And if I send this view to the layout now, I just send it like this, and that's fine. Okay. Now I can click on this view and I can do nothing to it. I can't, oh, hold on. No, I can't. I can't open the dialog for this to turn layers on and off. Nothing. So the only way I'm going to create a floor plan that's different than this is to have it in a different Chief Architect, in a Home Pro file. I have to have a multiple copy of the plan. So again, if you're just doing one project, yeah, you know, your homeowner doing the project for your house, maybe it's not a big deal. You got the time to mess with that. As a professional, you don't have time to mess around with that. Okay.
If anybody that's a Chief user wants to find out, and they're a new Chief user and wants to find out what it used to be like to work in Chief, get yourself a copy of Home Pro. As far as time it would take to do things. I mean, it's still a lot better than even Chief was in the earlier versions.
Well, yeah,
more advanced, but
yeah, well, it's way more advanced. I mean, the tools that you've got now. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not cutting Home Pro down at all.
No,
I mean, it's an amazing value for what you get. Yep. I mean, it's just really a great piece of software. I'm just showing you the difference between what a consumer and a pro might use. And I'll give you a few other examples of who might use that. All right, let me move on to a couple other things. So in Chief Architect, I can click on things. Like say I've made this nice island. I could click on that, and I can either make that into a symbol, okay, just by clicking that button, which would be in my library, or I could add that add those items to my library. I can add anything that I click on in Chief to my library. So I have complete flexibility to create all these different kinds of things in my plan. And when I'm working in the Home Pro version, I have none of that. You can't do anything with anything once it's in your plan, as I would expect. There's no ability to add things to libraries to do anything. So that's missing. You have, go ahead.
Since you're talking about symbols, what do they have for libraries? Is it just?
I'll run through that list in a little bit. I'll
Okay.
show you where to find the comparison online. It's really easy
Okay.
to take a look at. What kind of easy to take a look at between the two. But if you don't know what you're looking for, you won't know what you're looking for. You don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So, all right. So another thing is in Chief for the people that are somewhat power users. So when you click on something and you click on the middle button and you hit the tab key, I can now move that to a different position with the tab key. Don't have that in the Home Pro version. So again, for those of you that are, what we might call more power users, you use that a lot. It's really a big time saver. Right click to draw. So in Chief, I can right click on, if I draw walls with a right click mouse button, I can just keep drawing. Okay. In Chief, you don't have any of that function. Same with CAD lines. I can just right click to draw. It's really a nice feature when you get used to it. I went to first time I opened the Home Pro, I was going to draw some rooms and I used my right mouse button because I'm so used to it now, and it doesn't work. That is not there.
Yeah.
You cannot frame in Chief when I want to frame a remodeling project. So when I'm in the program and I want to do my framing, so here I'll just switch to my framing, and I want to frame just the walls or just the roofs. See here, I can have this wall framed and that wall not framed. Okay, so what I'd have to do is, the way I did this is I just select these walls and then we have a button down here to frame individual items. You don't have to frame the whole plan. In the Home Pro version, you don't have that ability. So when
can you manipulate the framing in Home Pro or not? So would you be able just to delete the framing you don't want, or can you move studs around and that kind of thing?
Let me build the wall framing and let's see what happens. Yeah, we got to turn that layer on. Okay, so yeah, so let's see if I can click on the framing. Tab key. Yeah, so I can grab the framing and manipulate it.
So you probably could delete what you don't want.
Possibly. So if I clicked on the framing icon, can I group select? In fact, does the group select even work in this version? Yeah, it does. Okay. So again, when you want to select cabinets, you select the cabinet icon. Now I can select just cabinet icons. No, I don't even believe, I can't even open the wall to look at what the framing looks like. As in Chief, you can click on the items that you've framed and you can look at that framing. And now you can manipulate it here all you want. So again, for consumer, they're not going to get it. They may not want to get into that. So it's not a big deal.
Right.
But for as a professional and you want to lay out and you want to get the right size headers and all that stuff in your plan, it's kind of a big deal. Could be a big deal. All right. Let's see what else I got. And the same is true with roofs. In the Chief version, I can frame my roof framing separately. I can do it per roof, so I don't have to frame the whole house. All right, so that's something that you can do. Can't create style palettes. Basically, style palettes allow you to change the look of your plan real quick. And I didn't download any other catalogs to see if it's even there. I'm not going to even get into it. There's no project browser in the home version, the consumer version, which makes perfect sense that there wouldn't be, because you can't create new layer sets. You can't create different plan views. You can't create all these things that we can create in Chief. So that's kind of a big deal. See, do they have a note thing? Yeah. Well, they don't have notes either. That's something I didn't realize. So the notes in Chief Architect allow you to create note schedules. So I've got this thing. So let me switch to like this. So I want to create a group of notes. I can use the note schedule tool here, and I can just add a note here. I can put some text in it, click OK, put some text here and click OK. And it's going to create a schedule for me of all the different things and leave that call out on the floor plan for that note. You can't do any of that in the consumer version. Project browsers, one page and layout, and you can't open multiple layout pages at the same time. Okay, so here I could have as many different layout tabs open as possible. So I could be doing layouts for different jobs. I could be doing different size layouts. I have complete flexibility in the Home Pro version. You can only open one layout page at a time. And when you want to create a different one, you have to close this, and then you can open a new one. So you have that. So that's some of the major things that are missing. There's a lot of other little things I'm not even going to get into, but
What about
just
the CAD tools? Are they?
CAD tools are pretty good in the home version. So you do have all of the tools here. So if I want to draw a line, I can't use my right mouse button again, but I can draw a line. I can do this. I can do this. Oh yeah, and I have the Magic Wand tool. So I can convert items to 3D things, but it's going to be limited. See what I can convert. Those lines I just drew, I can convert to an elevation line, train sprinkler line, or a walkthrough path. If I go to the Pro version, to the Premiere, and I do the same thing, I draw a couple of lines. Okay, this might be, I can now convert this to a whole bunch of things. All right, so you got a ton of things you can make out of different things that you put in your plan. So if I just draw a box, I can even do more with it. So now I can make that a footing, a platform, molding. I can make it part of my terrain. I can make it roads and sidewalks. I can make it distribution paths, material regions. So you really have a lot of flexibility with converting things in the Pro version that you don't have in the Premiere version that you don't have in Home Pro. Let's see here. Yeah, so that's some of the things that I wanted to point out. So let's just talk a little bit about who might want the Pro version versus who might want Premiere. All right, so let's talk about the Home Pro version. So let me go to the website here and just point this out. So again, it's on sale for $4.95. I think they did raise the price on it. It used to be just $4.95. You can get it on Amazon too, but I'd just go straight to Chief Architect and buy it right from them because they're the ones selling it online anyway. And when you buy this version, the Home Pro, again, if you're doing multiple projects, don't mess around with the architectural. Just bite the bullet, get 500. If at some point in the future you decide to upgrade to the Premiere version, you'll get a $500 credit toward the Premiere version. So you're not out anything. So it's a great way to get started in CAD for not a lot of money. So, I mean, even if your cash is really tight, for $59 a month, you're getting into this thing. I don't know how much how many months that is, but once you pay it off, you own it. So then same thing, you can still convert that to the Premiere version and get the $500 credit. So this chart here compares the three consumer products. So, and if you scroll down the list, you can just kind of see some of the differences. Oh, advanced stair tools. Okay. You're going to have a lot less capability of putting stairs in your plan. And there's a lot of other things. Again, the Home Pro version, great software, great program. You can do a ton with it. It's great to work with contractor consumer, unless the consumer wants to finish the plan. That's a pain for the contract, for the pro designer. So it's good for consumers doing a single plan or someone doing a few plans. This could be a really good version too for if you're a salesperson in a company and you're just doing the conceptual ideas for a project. Okay. You're just laying out walls, cabinets, doors, windows, things like that. It can work just fine for that. Okay. As long as you're not doing complete working drawings with it, it's a great program for that. So if you're just using it to get started, you could work with that all day long. Let's see, what were some of the other things that I wanted to point out. Again, getting started, DIY enthusiasts. I don't know, John, you got anything you want?
Does the licensing work the same as Chief does? So you could turn it off on a computer and then turn it back on another?
I believe it does.
So if you were a company that had carpenters in the field or something like that, and you wanted them to go get some measurements for you, you could have possibly a cheaper laptop. They could take it out to the field, use the professional version, do that.
Yeah, but you got to be careful of that, because if you're creating plan views and layer sets.
Well, this would be before that.
Oh yeah,
that's what I'm thinking. Like if you're doing an as-built and you need them to go get a couple hours worth of measurements or something like that, they could put it right in there.
True. Or I mean, if you just want to use it as a viewer, just go download the Premiere version, the Premiere demo. Then they'd be able to do everything that you can do. They just can't save anything. So if they wanted to open it up and look at it, that'd be fine. Yep. I don't know why they'd want to do that, but you could do that. Yep. And let's see. So as far as libraries goes, you get 8,800 and 46,000 bonus and product libraries, or that might be manufacturers. And the full version of Chief, I think it's up in the 100,000s now. Where would that be?
Did I see as you were scrolling past there, you can have 200 pages of layouts?
That would be in the interiors version.
Oh, in the interiors. Okay.
Yeah, I'll talk about that in a second here too.
Okay.
Where are we at here? Yeah, whatever. I know it's a ton because I've got them, and it's a lot of symbols. All right, I'm not seeing it here. Let me do this. Alt F, symbol. And let's just roll through this quick. That was 3D stuff. I'm not seeing it. It's here. It's a lot of stuff. I've got 400 different library packages. I think it was like 800 or 80,000 symbols, or it was probably more than that now. A lot more than that. Anyway, it's a lot of stuff. So anyway, again, good package if you just want to get into Chief and get started, and then you can upgrade to the full one later. So the difference between the Premiere and Interiors now is not nearly as significant, but take those words for what they are. When you're working on interiors, Chief's assuming you're not going to want to do landscaping. You don't want to do framing. You're not going to do as much detailing on the exterior of your project. Let's see, what other kinds of things do you, again, what I always tell people when they're asking me which product to get, and again, I have nothing to do with the sales of this stuff, by the way. So I used to be a dealer. They had a dealer program for 12 years, sold a lot of Chief Architect, and the new management came in and they eliminated the dealer program. So now you can only get it through Chief Architect. I always tell people the Premiere version is, what is the price? So for Premiere, it's $26.95 right now. It's on sale. For the interiors, it's $19.75. So about $700 less right now. $800 less. $700 less.
That rental works the same way too. If you do it for a certain number of months in a row, you have to keep it in a row, don't you?
Yes.
Then you own it after that.
Yeah, and that includes one of these renewal things too. Mm-hmm. So your renewal for the interiors is the same exact price. It's not a renewal. It's a called the software and support agreement. You pay this per year, and you get all the upgrades, all the libraries. You get full support. You get everything that Chief offers for that additional fee per year, and that's pretty typical with all CAD softwares. And again, Chief is the least expensive of all softwares that I've seen out there for keeping that software and support agreement up to date. And I always just tell people, just bite the bullet the first time, get the Premiere version. You'll have everything, You don't have to mess with anything because your renewals every year, the SSAs are the same for both versions. So you only bite the bullet the first time.
And that rental, back to the rental thing, it's a pretty good deal too, because you're not paying that much extra for the rental because you do get that extra
right
year
for
of an
the
SSA.
yep for the Premier version, you're going to pay. You can look it up here. It has all the info right here under rental. I think you're going to pay 20 payments or something.
Right.
You're going to pay about $400 more.
Right.
Is what it ends up to be to rent it. But at any time, 3 months into the thing, say, yeah, I love this thing, I'm just going to buy it. Right. They'll apply most of the rental price toward the purchase, and you just pay the difference. So then you won't have to pay as much for the rental. So it's not a bad deal. So again, Mike just says, yeah, Chief's amazing once you start to understand it. Training is key. Chief has great training. Chief does have really great training. Of course, our training's better, John. But Chief Experts has been the most helpful. Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I'm not bragging. We just teach a little differently.
Right.
Chief Architect teaches you really great instruction on how to use the software. We teach you how to make money with it, plus how to use the software.
And we have different backgrounds in the people teaching at Chief too.
Yeah, we have a lot of experience in the construction industry, so that makes a big difference. They do a weekly webinar right now, which I highly recommend everybody take those in. Again, the more training you take in, the more you're going to learn how to use the software faster and better and all this good stuff. The more money you can make with it.
If you learn just one thing in every training you do, it's gonna pay off.
And I watch their training too, and I always pick something up. It's like, oh, I forgot about that, or oh, that's a new feature I hadn't noticed yet. So because they're the developers of the program, they know the new features even better than I do, even though I've been part of the program since day one, basically. So it's but we're going to teach you how to use it more effectively. All right. So if you guys have any questions about that, or if someone's on this video later, or you're watching the video later, and I hope that was helpful to help you make a decision about which program you should get. Just chat in, just send a message or an email, and we'll be glad to help you any further if you want. Anything you want to add, John, to that?
No, I can see the potential in working with people that are using professional, even homeowners. Even if I bought a license and shared it with a homeowner or something like that, that wanted to be really involved, I could see some benefits.
Yeah, you could. There was a day when I would let homeowners borrow some of my older licenses, which I could still do. But once you work on it in the newer version, it's not backwards compatible. Right. It's just like, yeah, whatever. Just get the software. It's worth it. Let's see. So, John, let's shift gears a little bit now.
Yeah.
And what is here? We got a comment here. Today I'm using Chief as a straight CAD program to create technical graphics for slide presentations, not just for home design. Cool.
Yeah, you kind of do that. You kind of do that too when you do your layout pages and use them like a PowerPoint.
I do. Yeah, I've done that in the past. Works pretty well.
You got a calendar set up in Chief too, don't you?
I do. I'm going to post that in the ProAcademy probably in December. So it's pretty cool. It's a nice annual calendar that I developed. All right. So let's shift gears a little bit and talk about what happens when you start a plan. When you're working with a client, what are some of the things that you do to get started with that client? John, why don't you go ahead? Tell me what you do.
What are some of the things I do, or some of the things I should do?
Well, a little bit of both. How about that? Okay.
Well, the first thing I should do is go in through and set up my defaults, my default settings for my room heights and
for the project that you're about to work on,
and the doors and the window types that they want to use, and the trim sizes and stuff like that. Because the more of that stuff that I can set up ahead of time, the less amount of time I'm going to be spending going back and changing it later.
Yeah.
I have one of the things I'm going to start doing, I haven't started doing a lot yet, but when I set up my materials, I'm going to set my materials up so that they're not only color specific, but location specific too. So like my exterior trim is going to be exterior white. My interior trim is going to be interior white. So I can, if I want to change the colors, I can just change it all in the plan, and I'm not going to change my white color outside the same time I'm going to change my white color inside.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to do things like that. And then when I go to start drawing, you're going to start with your floor plan. But before I get too far into adding roofs and things like that, I'm going to make sure that everything's dimensioned to like a minimum of a 1/4 inch accuracy.
So you're going to try to eliminate those fractions.
I'm going to try to eliminate those fractions. And
Mm-hmm.
the way I do that is I actually change my dimension style to decimal feet and inches. So it goes out 4 points. So it might read 26 foot 6.3769, right?
Wow.
Then I know
Okay.
it's off. So if I can go tweak it real quick and get it exactly where I want.
Yeah.
Kind of what spurred that on is sending DWGs to engineers, and they say, "What is this?"
Oh.
So that's where that kind of shows up.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So
what kind of things do you do when you start talking to your client?
Well, I'm working with designers that already have the client and have the job started, so it might be different than most other people.
Yeah, that's a good point. You are doing more work for people that are already kind of working. They've already laid out the design somewhat. You're just taking it from there.
Yeah. If I'm working with a homeowner on that rare occasion, I want to know where the lot is. I want to know where there's a view.
Yeah.
I want to know the elevations of the lot. I want to know what they're looking for.
Yeah. So you guys on the call, what do you guys do when you start a project? Okay. And there's different places to start a project. Starting a project could be this day you get the phone call from the client says they want to do a, master bedroom suite or a room addition. I mean, that's one starting point. The next starting point might be, you got a bunch of information. Now you're going to go out the job and do the as-built because it's a remodeling project, or it's a new home and you're going to start gathering more information about what their needs are for the new home. So there's another starting point. And then you start drawing the plan. Where do you start there? What do you do when you start drawing the plan? So all these different questions that you need to start answering in the process. So I think when I was thinking about doing this show today, I thought, we just talked about this yesterday last few days about how do you start a plan and what are some of the things you do when you start working with chief architect. And so like you were saying, setting all your defaults right away is key to creating a really good project really quickly. So, what defaults should be set. Yep. And I've seen so many projects come through where they just start drawing because they want to start designing, and they start designing these complicated structures or projects, and nothing's even close to being correct for the 3D model. Now, let's clarify. Chief is a great program for laying out floor plans and putting windows and doors and stuff in, but it's also a 3D modeling program. So you have floors that have thicknesses, you have walls that have thicknesses, you have heights of rooms, you have, split levels. I mean, you've got all these variations coming into the 3D modeling aspect of putting your project together. This happens to you, John, because we've talked about it. Mm-hmm. You work with a client and they send you all the information, and now you're starting to draw the plan and you're wondering, well, what kind of floor system are they going to use? What's the roof going to be like? What pitch do they want? What kind of walls are they going to use? What kind of foundation are they going to put in the plan?
One question I just thought of that would be a good one to start asking probably is, do you want, like, so much of our building now is designed around engineered products like TJIs and glue lam beams and things like that. So that might be a question. Do you want to build it with dimensional lumber to try to keep the costs down, so your rooms are going to be smaller and bearings are going to be different, that kind of thing?
Yeah. So let me quantify Mike's statement here. And Mike, thanks for chiming in here. You do 75% of your projects without ever meeting the client. So you as a professional are probably making all those decisions for them. Now, I don't know if you're designing for people in your local area or if you're designing for people all over the country. Me, I design for people all over the country. I'm always working with clients, from Alaska to, Europe, everywhere. It's just everywhere. California is different than Minnesota. Florida is different than California. Florida is different than Minnesota. Yeah. So, I grew up in Minnesota. I've spent my career here, and I've kind of got a good understanding of what goes around the country. But Tampa might be a little bit different than a different city in Florida.
One thing I just ran into that I knew, but I never thought about it, was in Minnesota, you deal with frost depth.
Yes.
In Florida and the coastal areas, you can't have the water coming in, the flood water coming in the first floor.
Yeah. You deal with hurricanes, I think they call those.
Yes.
And now it looks like on a regular basis. So we have blizzards here, and we have really cold temperatures in the middle of the winter. And we're not a frozen tundra, you guys, no matter what you've heard.
Although I have had water lines freeze 8 feet down. So,
well, you're way up north. So, yeah, you are a frozen tundra. Yeah. But we do have beautiful, beautiful summers, falls, and springs. So one of the things I like to do whenever I'm working with a client, unless they, it's local and I know exactly what they need to do, and plus, as you get to know people, you know what they want. So what I like to do is, let's work on this kind of information. So we need to, this is one of the first things I do with just about every client, every project that I start. When I start working with someone, I want to know this information. Okay. In order for me to model the building correctly, remember, modeling is different than just drawing floor plans. If I know this information up front, I can start setting up the project correctly so that when I model, I'm putting the right floor thickness in, the right walls, the right ceiling heights, the right foundation type, and we don't have to come back and mess around with it later. Okay. So,
and if you get all that set up, you can almost treat it like you're just drawing a floor plan.
Yeah.
Because everything's there the way you want it.
Mike says Wyoming has the least code requirements, so that was fun, removing the requirement language. Yeah, when a client calls from California, wants me to help them with a plan or work on a plan, it's just like I always know that there's going to be a ton more work involved in those projects than somewhere in Texas where, I helped the guy build a massive house out in the ranch, which I think all they needed were some electrical inspections and stuff like that. It's just, this is a big ass house. We put a ton of work into this thing, and it's probably better built than most houses in the country. But there was nothing that we had to turn into the city. They didn't need any plans with all of this stuff all over it. And since this guy,
they let the contractor be the responsible person.
They did. And, so I didn't have to spend as much time working on the details in the plan, but we did still put a lot of detail into it because we had to have that to build a house like this. So yeah, it's important that you have that room by room form to getting flooring, door. Yeah. So that's nice. So yeah, the more information you can get about a project up front, there's checklists out there. There's all sorts of things that you can do when you're doing it. And again, as we're getting more into the technology, the Matterport is pretty cool. So to be able to go and capture the rooms, and to go look at the site and do the as-built and take tons of pictures and get all the information you need about a project. Or if it's a new home, you got to get those questions answered. Any building project, whether it's a remodeling project or a new home, it's just nothing more than answering a whole boatload of questions. So, I've always said that doing a room addition, a master bedroom addition or something, it's just a series of answering 5,000 to 10,000 questions. And once you get those done, it's easier to build. So, Cool. So what else we got? Again, it's starting a plan from, interviewing, learning how to interview, learn how to become a good question asker is kind of what it boils down to, not just to your clients, but to yourself. So when I'm working on a plan and I'm laying out walls, what should this wall be like? When I create a room, what should the floor thickness be? What should the floor be made out of? What's the floor finish? I'm creating a roof. What kind of thickness of the roof is there going to be, hand framed or trusses? So as you answer those questions in chief and you're modeling the program, modeling the building, everything just comes together nicer. You get better cross sections, better framing plans. It just works. It just really works. So become a good question asker for the projects that you're working on. Cool. Anything you want to add to that, John? Anybody out there got something you want to add? Data collection form sheet is kind of what we become. We become our own best data collectors. Wonder how they came up with all the questions to create this room back here, huh?
I kind of pictured it as being one guy with a team of people, that had their own teams of people that,
Yeah. Well, you have 1,500 people building a house. There's a lot of stuff going on. There's a lot of questions being asked and a lot of questions being answered. I know they had the guy the main architect on this house. There's two guys, the main architect and the main landscape person. It's a fabulous story. I don't even remember the names right offhand. I haven't looked at it for quite some time. Great, great story. So pick up the book on the Vanderbilts. I forget the name of it. It's I listened to it on Audible. It was like 30 hours long. It was really a good book. Told all about it. I listened to it before we went and visited the mansion because I wanted to know what was going on with it. So it was pretty cool.
So I don't think they had blueprint machines back then, did they? 800 years ago?
Well, yeah. Remember they used to do the blue. You had paper was blue with white lines.
Yeah.
So it was an ammonia type thing.
That's what a blueprint was.
Yeah. I don't know if that's how they did them back then. I have no idea.
Yeah. So if they had to hand draw every single copy, they probably had minimal copies. So they probably had people created as the plan keeper.
Yeah, they did have some of those plans on display there, and I'm trying to remember what they look like. I'm not remembering right offhand. I know they had these plans for that project, but I'm sure these were redrawn in the future. These probably weren't the original plans for the house by any means. I know I've got pictures here somewhere, but I'd have to go through a few hundred pictures to find it. So I'm not going to do that right now. And of course, you're not seeing my screen, are you? So I'm so used to doing my webinars where the screen's always on, right, that when I do this, sometimes I forget. Mike says, as built are always more involved than it initially appears. Your suggestions of computer on site is key. So Mike, you've adopted measuring on site. Good for you, man. It really does work, doesn't it? Last plaster wall thicknesses in old houses are fun, and really old houses are used full of dimension numbers. Yeah. So, I've done measured houses where I've actually changed all of this stuff just to match.
Yeah. And I'll use CAD a lot when I'm in an older house.
Hi, Earl.
Because one wall might be thicker than another wall, and it's the same structure basically.
Google says the first blueprint was made in 1842. Hey, Margaret, how you doing? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
1842.
So they did have blueprints back then.
Yeah. The chemical reaction or however they did it, I don't know. So I remember days before not plotters, but the days when you would hand draw, and I would take them into my blueprint copying place, and the ammonia, you'd walk into the room and it's just like, whoo.
Yep.
The guys that worked there must have had just the clearest sinuses of everybody in the world. Because, it smelled. It was just amazing. I don't know how they could possibly do that. Facebook, I just started drafting about 2 weeks ago. After 15 years in the field, we've got 8 homes to get the final plans and break ground. I'm using HD Pro at the moment. Is the upgrade going to be worth the money by saving time? Oh my God, yeah, massive amounts of time.
That in your template.
Yeah, if you have 8 homes to complete, and let me put it this way: unless you're drawing your floor plans and everything in the plan is on one drawing, you don't have separate drawing sheets like with framing and electrical and all that. That's the only time HD Pro is going to be a good fit for you, for a professional. But if you're doing full-blown plans with all of the different sheets in them, and I don't know if this person has joined us a little bit later. Again, in HD Pro, you cannot do this. You can't switch between the different kinds of views that you're going to draw just by clicking on the little link here and, getting into the different types of plans that you're going to use to build those houses. And the ability to save elements of your plans to libraries, to save details to your libraries, to do all the different things that you do for a plan, all in one plan file is, in Chief is just phenomenal in the Pro version. So you see how quickly I switch between all of these different views that I'm about to print. Of course, I had the text on. So were you able to see that okay, even with the text on, John? So it's just this in itself, just the ability to do this, to have layer sets, to have default sets for your text and dimensioning, and to have the plan views where you can easily set up and switch between the different kinds of plans. It's huge. That will save you at least conservatively 50% of the time you put into those plans. Easily. Because what you're doing, if you're doing different views, you'll have to have different plan files for each one. Okay, so I hope that was helpful, Facebook user. That's one thing I don't like about this software. When you're in Facebook, you have to agree to the little message in order for us to know who it is.
It sounds like they're under a time crunch too with 8 homes.
Yeah.
It would be worth getting a hold of either you or me or somebody else that's good with Chief and getting some help.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, if you are under time crunch, just reach out to us. We'll be happy to either pass your name on to someone we know, or maybe we can even help you. Yep. Mike says he works with good builders who are great at educating their clients to the best material selections, like the iJoist will remove bouncy floors, no jiggle. Yeah, that's excellent. That when you have someone that knows the products that you're drawing with, that's great. Yeah, Frank said the same thing. Custom templates for each different permit. Custom language, and the time is spent in the plan. Okay. Facebook user, you're welcome. And how's Chief with commercial buildings, the facades? It's fabulous. I mean, Chief, again, it kind of advertised as residential, but I've drawn a ton of commercial stuff in here. I drew a 7-story, 170 unit apartment. It was an apartment building in Chief. Now, we didn't go to working drawings in it, but I had the whole thing drawn, modeled, every floor plan, color coded, different types of rooms. And it was great. It worked perfect. And that was years ago that I did that. That was X1. Now we're up to X13 coming up. So that makes a big difference. So yeah, it works fine. It really does.
It helps to really understand the program when you're doing parapet walls and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, you can.
Again, just when you're working with Chief, a lot of people think you're actually building a building. So you've got to specify walls and doors and windows, or walls and floors and all that stuff correctly. You're not. You're working with a 3D modeling program that creates boxes, that puts boxes inside of boxes. We talk about this a lot in our classes, John, and when you start thinking about it as a CAD program instead of a program that draws buildings, you're going to find it a lot easier to work with and get your projects done. So yeah, so Frank, it works just great with that. All right, if you guys, feel free to join us in our Facebook group, which some of you might be in right now. That's where you're watching this. And feel free to ask those questions in there too. John and I are both in there all the time, and other people will be happy to respond and give you all the information that you're looking for. John, looks like we're about out of time. So I hope that was helpful, you guys. Feel free to reach out again. To get to our Facebook group, the easiest way to do it is to go to chiefexpertsacademy.com and just go to the homepage and scroll down to the bottom and click this first one here. Join our private Facebook group, and you'll be able to get in there. And you can also join other groups on the internet. Chief Architect has a group called Chief Talk. There's a Chief Architect users group on Facebook. I think there's 3 or 4 different Facebook user groups, and they're all really good. Of course, ours is the best. So, right, John?
Yep.
And then be sure to check out our ProAcademy, where you can get the template that I was just showing you. And there's tons of training in there, how to use the template. And we've got all sorts of things coming up in the ProAcademy. So it's really easy to get into. It's $297 a year. And yeah, hope to help you guys out. So
yep.
Let's see. We've got a couple more questions. Do you create a custom wall, 2 walls, or a party wall when I bring a wall too close to another? Mike, that shouldn't be doing that. So we should take a look at what you're doing. If you want to send me your plan, I'd be happy to take a look at it. But no, that shouldn't do that. The Home Pro version doesn't do that, by the way. Oh, I know. Make sure that in the structure tab of one of the walls, you mark it as a furring wall in the structures tab. That might make a difference.
On the other hand, you might like it building it a wall type so it's got two walls in it.
Could do that too.
Depend
how you do, where you're doing it, and how if you're doing it in the basement, don't do that. And if you're doing it on the other floors, that works fine.
Right.
You guys design homes using a cold floor steel system, CFS, and how do you sum it up against other typical lumber? I'm not familiar with that, so I'm not going to be any help with that. Anything on that, John?
Nope.
Earl, go ahead.
I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, hop in our Facebook group and ask that question. Yeah. Maybe some people have some ideas for you there. Mike, I framed 10 big apartments. The CAD plans were pretty intense, but they used AutoCAD architectural. I'm not following that, Mike.
I think he was commenting when you were talking about doing that big apartment building.
Oh yeah.
And you didn't go to working drawings.
No, the project ended up not happening. So we ended up not needing to go to working drawings. But had we gone to working drawings, we would have hired an architect to take care of that. That was beyond my pay grade. So I didn't even want to have to. Just not anything I wanted to do. I was doing the fun part, laying it out, designing it, making it cool, all that kind of stuff. That's the fun part, not the detailing. All right, with that, we're going to call it a day. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate you being here, and we'll catch you next time. Be sure to check out our ProAcademy. Would love to see you in there. See you next time, guys. Bye.
Have a good weekend.